lobby. Let's all go to the lobby, lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to Now Slain, an It Slays podcast production where we review the latest and greatest in the world of horror. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
Hey, it's Jill.
And we will be talking about I Know What You Did Last Summer, released July 18th, 2025, exclusively in theaters. Now, Jill, I believe, were you on the episode that we did I Know What You Did Last Summer?
Yeah. It was actually Colton, I think, who wasn't on the episode.
on it.
Yeah.
So what's your relationship with this franchise? Like, are you a fan? I mean, obviously, next to this, there's only been like 3 other movies, but are you a fan of this? Was this like one of your favorites growing up, or just what's your relationship with this?
Yeah, so I feel like this was a pretty iconic movie back in the 90s when I was a kid. And, along with Scream, they were just like kind of the top like slasher or horror movies in general that everybody knew, and everybody knew what it was about, and everyone had seen it. So I remember it having this like really good, strong memory and nostalgic feeling that I get from it. But when we rewatched and discussed the movie for the podcast, I think, was that like a year ago, or is it 2 years ago?
I feel like it was 2 years ago.
God, okay. Yeah, well, we talked about it then, and I think we all kind of agreed that the nostalgia of the original was stronger than like kind of how we remembered it. And I still enjoy the original, but it did not quite like live up to the hype that I remember swarming the movies back in the 90s.
I just looked it up, and you, me, and Mike, because yes, Colton missed that episode, we unanimously gave it an okay.
Yeah. Like, it's enjoyable. I like it, but it doesn't touch Scream at all. And that's kind of what I have to compare it to. What about you? Yeah,
I feel like I'm kind of like you. I feel this in memory, that in nostalgia lives as like this, great kind of teen slasher that was like up there with Scream. Like, oh, if you're doing Scream, you might watch Scream, and then I Know What You Did Last Summer. And I mean, obviously this has especially the original, has such a huge like fan base, I feel like, for that. And then, like you said, like we kind of watched it, and on the rewatch of it, I remember the kind of general consensus just being like, oh, this is like a lot more PG than we remember. And like, it's just like, I remember there's like not really like a lot of blood or anything. And it was like very sanitized for a little younger audience than Scream, and just not as witty as Scream and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, to me, I will say I've never seen the third one, that I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, which was like a direct-to-video. Nobody was in it that was connected with any of them, I don't think. And the second one, I really don't remember. I will be honest.
Me neither.
It's been in the canon of loading it up for a full episode sometime. I'm curious to revisit how well Jack Black with dreadlocks and maybe a phony baloney Jamaican accent aged. At least dreadlocks. I can't remember if he had an accent, but so maybe someday. But yeah, I've always been kind of lukewarm on this. Scream. I shouldn't even say that. I shouldn't even say that, because I was talking about how my Scream love really didn't develop till like a couple of years ago. Like I didn't hold it in this high regard. But this was very far down the list for teen slashers for me, like this franchise. So yeah, other than nostalgia, not really fully interested in it. So is this requel worth the squeeze at the box office and introducing all these kids to this? We will discuss that, but first let's kick it on over to the trailer.
Welcome to Southport, a seaside town haunted by violence. In 1997, a fisherman terrorized a group of teens with his horrific hook. The notes.
It's 1997 all over again.
Please stop! This is worse.
I Know What You Did Last Summer, exclusively in theaters July 18th.
I Know What You Did Last Summer is directed by Jennifer Caton Robinson and written by Sam Lansky and Jennifer Caton Robinson, and the synopsis is as follows. When 5 friends inadvertently cause a deadly car accident, they cover up their involvement and make a pact to keep it a secret rather than face the consequences. A year later, their past comes back to haunt them, and they're forced to confront a horrifying truth. Someone knows what they did last summer and is hell-bent on revenge. So here on Now Slaying, we like to start off with our spoiler-free section, which Jill is usually terrible at. Let's kick it on to the spoiler-free part and see if how Jill holds up in this. So Jill, what are your first thoughts on I Know What You Did Last Summer?
Well, I just want to say you're going to be proud of me because I'm holding up my notebook to the camera and I wrote spoiler-free thoughts.
I love this.
And then I have a couple of pages until spoiler section. So I am organized. I'm ready to go.
You're ready.
The only issue is I wrote this in like metallic and sparkly gel pen and the light is like reflecting off of it, so I can't really read it. So oops. But overall, I feel like this is a fairly solid requel. You know, I was just talking about the original. I still very much liked the original and thought it was a fun slasher with like enough originality to cement its fame and kind of lasting power in pop culture. And I don't know. I was kind of scared but intrigued to see this one. I saw the trailer when it came out and I thought it was a very strong trailer and it made me excited to see it. But I think what I can say is that the 2025 version of I Know What You Did Last Summer does a similar thing to the original, although keep that in there. Although I don't think it will go down in history as a particularly memorable sequel or requel, I do think it was high time to update the franchise. And this movie does exactly that, kind of in the same way that the Scream sequels did. Although I do think the Scream franchise is much more well executed, kind of like you talked about. It's gorier, it's racier, it's like sexier. And, the kills are on camera. But, I think both Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer are both staples in the slasher genre for our generation in the 90s. And I always like to see how they update things like that. And I think the new adaptation does try to make itself more relatable to the newer generations while still sticking to its roots. And this does affect the tone. I think it is doing a lot in trying to appease to such a vast audience, like the original fans who watched the original when it came out, and then the newer ones. And this led to me finding a lot of the dialogue to be really cringy, especially for much of like the first third of the movie. And that in turn with like some not great acting, particularly the main character, made the movie kind of cheesy. But once the action got started, though, it was good enough for me to kind of ignore all the cringy stuff and just sit down and enjoy the movie. And some other things I liked were familiar touches and callbacks to the original, like you got Southport and little Easter eggs. The kills and the effects were good. And I also thought the soundtrack was pretty banger. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just going off your last note there, I did note, I thought the soundtrack was pretty strong in it. I was like, I like the vibes of this, all that stuff. I don't know if I felt it went with the film necessarily, but I did like the music. I was kind of thinking back to the original soundtrack, which of course, like the iconic song from that was it -0 or like someone, and they covered Summer Breeze. Like that was like the main song, and it was a lot of like kind of, like pop rock type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand pop rock is not popular now, so that, you got to update it. I feel like overall, I'm probably a little more lukewarm on this than it sounds like you are, which is really a shame because I was kind of excited because I was actually a pretty big fan. Jennifer Caton Robinson, she wrote, like, one of her first films that she wrote and directed that kind of made buzz was Do Revenge for Netflix, and I was actually a pretty big fan of that movie. I thought it was pretty well done. It was like a witty kind of Mean Girls thing with Camila Mendes as the star of it, and I was a pretty big fan of that. And so I was kind of excited to see what she would do with this, because also she was a co-writer on Thor, Love and Thunder. So, she's kind of done like all these, been all over the place, and obviously they entrusted her with this. It did make me a little bit worried, and I think my worries were there, and validated that, like, she co-wrote this. I'm not sure who Sam Lansky is, but this is the only thing they've ever written. Like, they haven't done anything else except executive produce like an independent film. And I feel old. Maybe that's the issue. I remember having this conversation about bodies, and I remember the general conversation that critics and people and stuff were talking about. It was talking about the language, the phrasing, things like that. And one of the issues with that was a lot of people were saying, Bodies was written by someone that's, older than us. And, they're trying to reach back and use this like Gen Z language, and are they using it properly? And that's kind of how I felt with this one. Like, there was a lot of stuff where I was like, there's so many times in this, they're just like saying memes that you see. And I was just like, I don't know, like, I interact with some like 20-year-olds, I guess, like in my job and stuff. I don't personally know anyone that just talks in like memes, other than sending them. Like, there was just a lot of weird phrasing and stuff, and I was like, I don't think people actually talk like this. And of course, like, the big offender for me was like kind of the last scene before the credits. And we'll talk about that in the spoiler section. But yeah, I felt like this was very robotic. Like, I felt the interactions weren't there. The friendship, I didn't like really get friend vibes from any of these people with each other. It's just like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Like, I just feel like so many of these kind of slasher films that are made usually like a big studio by someone that isn't ingrained in the horror community. It's just like, I always feel like I'm being fed like AI horror. It's like, I was thinking about like when we talked about like tarot and, just like all this stuff, and it's like cringe dialogue, real basic jump scare stuff. And I just like, I feel like there's no heart in it. This is super glossy. That like, the style of this, I'm not a fan of. I shout out to Colton, because I felt like Colton watching this with my complaints. I'm like, oh my God, that's a Colton complaint. But like, there was like a scene in this where there's fireworks going on towards the beginning, and like, they don't even have the fireworks like properly framed in the shot. It's like cut off. So I'm seeing like 3/4 of a firework, and I'm like, there's no way that was on purpose. If it is, like, these people just don't, like, it looks ugly. I was like, it looks like my theater cut half of the picture off, but that's not the case. And it was like things like that where I was like, this just seems, the cinematography seems very bizarre. And I feel like I shouldn't feel like that, because I'm looking now, like, the cinematographer for this was the cinematographer for Immaculate, The Night House. Like, these are like banger horror movies that I really enjoy. Yeah, I just, unfortunately, to me, maybe the direction, I don't know. I don't know what's there. And the characters, I mean, a lot of these guys, I don't know. Do you find these characters like pretty like vanilla? Like I found they just weren't endearing or anything. Like, at least in the original Jennifer Love Hewitt, I mean, she's just like gutted. Like, she's just like such a presence even now, but back then, Freddie Prinze Jr., like all these people, Ryan Philippe, like they had such screen presence that you're just like drawn into them. This, I just felt, I'm like, these have to be like a bunch of Disney kids that they've just they're like, it's time to graduate into a horror movie.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you just said. But the only characters that I cared about were Danica, who's played by Madeline Klein, and also Julie, so Jennifer Love Hewitt's character. Everyone else, like you said, very bland, very vanilla, especially the main character, Ava, who's played by Chase Sui Wonders.
I loved her. I thought she was the
Oh, really?
Well, I shouldn't know. Let me bring that back a bit. I like her as an actor. I liked her in Bodies, Bodies. I liked her in Daniel Isn't Real. Like, I do like her, and I think she has a pretty good presence. I think the material's so bad that she's not very good in this, and I don't think it's her fault. I'll say that. Like, I do like her as an actor. I'm not on the same camp with Madeline Klein. I'm
Why?
not. I'm just not really sure about this top billing of Madeline Klein. Like, Madeline Klein is the top billing of this movie, and
She saved the movie.
I don't know. I just.
She was like the best character.
To me, I think I would have appreciated the character more if she's there. Because she gets all, she is the comedic relief of this movie. Like, everything's funny with her. So I think I would have preferred to see less of her and her used as that pressure valve like you would in a normal horror movie. I didn't find it super interesting. And maybe that's because, I guess I just don't really know how interested I am about these like uber rich teenagers just like doing all this wild shit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love that they were like rich and spoiled and like these kind of nepo baby characters, but I don't know. I feel like Danica is kind of like a satire character, and she's like just so over the top, like dumb rich girl, but she also has like good characteristics. Like, she cares about Helen Shivers. I love that whole sequence. But I don't know, I thought she was like so funny, and I don't know, I thought she was great. I really liked her. Ava, I did not like. I was like so bored. Especially for like a main character. I don't know, I feel like you have to do more. And everyone else was also pretty like generic. Like, I wasn't crazy into anybody else's acting, but also the script, like you said, it's kind of AI garbage sounding. But I don't know, like, I feel like dialogue is really important. Like, you need to get someone to properly write a script for a teen movie. It needs to land. If it doesn't land, then it's not cool. And no one's ever gonna like take it seriously. Not like a slasher gets taken seriously really anyways, but like, in order for it to be good, it cannot be cringy.
Yeah, well, and like, it's just kind of like, I felt like the character beats were just so much ripped from the first one, even though they tried to change a little. But like, obviously, like Danica is imitating Helen Shivers, like, it's that kind of character, and obviously Ava is supposed to be Julie, and then, like I said, Teddy's kind of taking on that Ryan Philippe role, but it was just stuff like, like Ryan Philippe was the jockey asshole guy, but like, he was so interesting in the first one, like far more interesting than I thought Teddy was. And I did really think it's funny for Tyreek Withers. Like, I don't know the trailers you got, but like, the big trailer for this one was him, the new Jordan Peele produced horror movie. that he is the star
yes.
of.
I saw that, yeah.
Which I like. Sidebar, I'm just like so on board with this. I'm not even a football guy, but I love Marlon Wayans in serious roles.
Right? That's what it's called?
Yeah, him.
Yeah.
And I'm just like very excited for that movie. I think it's going to be a cool horror movie. And also, like I know him from, he was in a really famous episode of Atlanta, of Donald Glover's Atlanta, that he was fantastic in. And yeah, I thought this was, he definitely shot this, but before he was doing like the hymns and doing all that stuff. And also Jonah Hewer Kane that played Milo. Like we I don't know what we're doing here. We should have just written this character out. This like like I thought this character was pointless. Like no as the kids would probably say in this movie, no Riz. There was no Riz going on at all.
None.
Yeah, but like, you know, jump scares stuff, like, I don't know, there was nothing that made me jump. There was, like, I thought, yet again, it was, like, even the horror in this seemed like it was written by AI, and I feel like so many of these movies, we always, when me and Colton are talking, we're always like, I'd be less offended if this had to just, like, came out on, like, Paramount, or, like, HBO, or Disney Plus, or whatever. Like Hulu, whoever Sony distributes through, like, because to me, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, like, you know, you're gonna, you know, just put it on streaming. To me, this seems like a streaming horror movie, like, and I just think, I think probably what they were hoping for is exactly what the original did, but did it well enough where obviously the original was so, you know, they made it because Scream was a big deal, and the studio said, we need to make these teen horror movies, and it kind of carved its own way. But to me, this wants to be like that Scream requel, Scream 5, so bad.
Yes.
Except like Scream 2022, I think is like what it's actually officially called. I was going to say Scream 5, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. But like, that was casted so well. Radio Silence did it. It was written really well. Like, the horror was well done. I was on record, like, I was a pretty big fan of 6 also. Like, continuing on with that. Like, they did it right. And yet again, Scream is just eating their lunch. Like, this is coming out as an inferior product to what we're already getting. You know, it's not as bad as like The Strangers Chapter 1 or something like that, I don't think, where it's just like incompetent essentially. But
damn, okay.
I mean, to me, it's like pretty close. To me, this is like a no effort. This is just like, we need to make some money, and people like, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and that's what we're gonna do. Yeah, I don't know how much more spoiler-free stuff I have to say about it.
Well, are you trying to say you wouldn't recommend going to see it in the theater? Because that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, I don't think I would. At least I don't think if you're my age. And the problem is I think a lot of the business that they are, obviously they're hoping for younger people to be like, sweet, which, you know, me and Colton always conveniently fit our theater experiences in this section. So, like, my theater, there was quite a few people there. It was a lot of, like, preteens, you got, like, 14, 15-year-olds. And, I mean, maybe the movie did what it was supposed to do. They were screaming, and they were jumping and, yapping, all that kind of stuff on their phones, all the garbage, but like they seemed to be enjoying the movie or were engaged in it and the mystery of it, which like is another thing. I didn't think the mystery was that big of a mystery, really. Very formulaic. But yeah, I just feel like if you're our age, you can probably wait for this to come out to a streamer. This isn't, I don't even think this gives you the nostalgia beat that like a Scream requel does. Like, other than giving you a couple characters and like being in Southport, like Southport doesn't look, obviously they're trying to say it's been all redone and stuff. The real special thing about I Know What You Did Last Summer that I see people over and over again love about it is the aesthetic of like the nautical aesthetic. It's this fishing community, like they're doing the prom queen stuff, and there's like fish buckets everywhere, and like it's like this coastal town where it's like I said, the aesthetic to me is ugly. This is just like, it's the OC of I Know What You Did Last Summer, where it's like everyone just lives in like mansions. Everything looks like it's like Bel Air on a coast. And I was like, that kind of defeats the purpose to me, because I Know What You Did Last Summer. Look, I'm going to get all like a Communist Manifesto going on here. But I Know What You Did Last Summer really had this like, like this working class kind of slasher feel, because all the people are like kids of fishermen, and it's like real blue collar. And I just think it's so uninteresting to be like, we're going to twist this and let's make it like it's rich people now. It's not blue collar people. So yeah, to me, I think if you're young, I feel like young people are going to like this. This is going to be like one of those, this is our I Know What You Did Last Summer. So maybe this isn't made for me. I know it's not made for me, other than getting my dollars for nostalgia. This is made for kids that get them all, in on this franchise that they're, desperately, we'll talk about in the spoiler section, desperately trying to do the Scream and make multiple sequels out of this. So I am not going to recommend it. What about you, Jill?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about my theater experience first. So I went to a different theater than I normally go to, like hella in like Pennsylvania farm suburbs, and it was a very dead theater, and so there wasn't many people in my movie, just like a handful of people, and they were all actually kind of older. So it's interesting how different it is from your experience. It also was a very quiet watching experience. But I also wanted to say that I agree with like the aesthetic of it. Like it still has some of the nautical charm to it, but it is like glossy, rich people.
It's like, instead of a fishing boat, how about you come on my yacht?
Yeah, I do like that. But yeah, the mansions. And the other thing about that was like, I didn't know whose house they were ever in, and I couldn't tell if it was a different mansion. So I don't know actually like where they were half the time. And that's something that's very different from the original, because what like Julie's house looks like. It's like kind of iconic, But, let's say this. I would recommend going to see it if you're looking for just a fun summer slasher, or if you're a big fan of the original and are open-minded to a sequel. However, if you decide to go and see it in the theater, adjust your expectations. Like, do not go in expecting to see as good or better of a movie as the original, because if you do that, you'll be fine. I like the trailer, like I said before, and the first third of the movie was kind of rough, and I was preparing myself to sit down and be like, wow, this is a stinker. Like, I was starting to hate on it for a good while, and then the kills started, and I was like, okay, I can deal with this. This is getting better. So it does get better. So yeah, if you're willing to give it that chance, go ahead and have fun with it. If that does not seem like your cup of tea, just wait for it to come out on streaming, or just don't watch it at all.
So a not recommend for me, and I feel like that was like a light to moderate recommend from Jill.
Yeah.
So with that, why don't we go over to the spoiler section and spoil the heck out of this. So we are now in the spoiler section. If you haven't seen the movie yet, this is where you can pause it and come back after you've seen it, or just keep listening if you really don't care. So the kills. Let's talk about the kills first. I feel like it would be so obvious for us to go into like cameos and all that kind of stuff, but let's talk about the kills, because I didn't really touch on that at all in the spoiler free section. I will say I thought the kills were okay. I think it's okay. I think it's really hard to pull this off in 2025. Because when I think about our other kind of, our other fun slashers that we're given, like, our Hard Eyes, our Thanksgiving, like, the kills are pretty tame in this. They're definitely trying to keep it so they can keep that, like, 14 rating so they can get that audience. I don't know how you felt. I felt like I appreciated, like, using the harpoon gun instead of just using, like, the hook and stuff. Obviously, the hook's iconic, but, like, you can only do so much with that stuff. So, I don't know how you felt. Like, I do like the kills. I thought they were fine, but there was no kill that I was ever like, oh, yeah, like, let's go. I got kind of excited with the lobster trap falling on her. And then I was like, oh, like, maybe something cool is going to happen with this lobster trap. And then not really. It's just like, it's not going to really happen. What was your favorite kill in this?
Yeah, so I agree that the kills and the effects are pretty strong, and I feel like the tension was definitely there for a lot of those scenes. Some of the better scenes for me, I think, is that first kill from the fisherman. That was in the trailer, and that's what I remember seeing in the trailer and getting excited for. Mm-hmm. I think the setup is great, and we have that, like, contrast from the shots jumping from the fiance being brutally killed to Danica just, like, relaxing in the bath, blissfully ignorant.
Stolen directly from Scream. That whole scene.
So let me get there. So she's taking her nice bath with her headphones, and it is very Scream. It creates that, like, humorous yet kind of terrifying tone. And my note here is the pool lighting up while the fiance looks out into the backyard also just reminds me of the beginning sequence of Scream. And I'll say it now, but I did get a lot of Scream vibes, like basically doing the whole multiple ghost face fisherman route thing. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But I thought that first kill was pretty good. And I love that they brought, this is not really a kill, but I like this scene. They brought back Sarah Michelle Gellar for, like, a nightmare sequence.
I did like that. I love that.
Yeah. Me too. The Croaker Queen, I thought it looked awesome. Even if, like, the effects were, like, a little bit kind of cheesy. I don't know. That's kind of like what I'm into, like Prom Queen looking like that, with the blood dripping down and, like,
I thought even when, like, she's rotting and stuff, it was giving me, like, early 2000s vibes. And to me, I was fine with it because I was like, yeah, like, give me something that I'm like, oh yeah, this seems like it's in that era.
Yes, definitely. And honestly, I was thinking Croaker Queen would be a great Halloween costume this year.
Yeah, there you go.
So if you're not decided, pick that. But yeah, I think that's my favorite kill. Yeah. How about you?
I didn't really have one. Like, I thought the kills were fine, but there was none that I was like, oh shit, like, that's cool. Like, which I kind of want to be blown away by, or at least, like, feel something. Like, I know when we talked about Scream 2022, like, I talked about how I really enjoyed that because it's not like they did anything crazy kill-wise, but, like, the kills seemed, like, so visceral and violent and, like, brutal, where, like, I still just kind of felt this was, like, sanitized, like, way too much. And like you said, I mean, it was that pool scene was hard. I was like, are we really doing the introduction Scream kill here? And it's just like, it's like I said, so much of this movie is just wants to be Scream. And I think, like, maybe what's forgotten while they made this is, like, Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer, both Kevin Williamson projects. He wrote both of those movies, and, like, they were totally different. They had like, he was able to separate them to not be the same. And to me, this is just like, man, this is someone that's like, I love Kevin Williamson stuff, and they're just thinking about Scream, and that's it, because obviously that's what you would think about. I mean, you're going to think about that or Dawson's Creek, one of the two. But yeah, I felt there was way, way too much influence where it was overpowering the influence of the nostalgia of the other movies, where I was like, this is enough. Like, this is number 4 in a franchise. Like, you should be wanting to call back, not just bringing characters, but calling back to things that people that love this franchise remember about I Know What You Did Last Summer. I shouldn't be thinking about another horror movie in your 4th entry into a franchise.
I think one major mistake for me, when I saw Milo getting into the car and like dying in the car, I was like, okay, they're setting this up so they can do like the crab trunk scene.
Yeah.
And they didn't. They didn't do anything, and it was very lackluster.
Not only just Milo's character, even his death, lackluster.
Yeah. Like you said, you could write him out of the whole movie and you wouldn't notice.
So what do you think about, I mean, I guess let's talk about what everyone really wants to, talk about. So what do you think about the inclusion of Freddie? Obviously, from the trailers, we knew Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt were going to be in this, but like, what did you think about that inclusion of them and how their characters worked? And obviously, having the twist of Ray being like a villain now and Julie doing psychiatry, or she's a professor of psychology or something.
Yeah, I thought Jennifer Love Hewitt was like an absolute star in this. She looks fantastic and she's kind of a boss character. I love that she's a college professor. I think, like you said, specifically a psych professor. And I like that she's teaching about trauma. And I do like that thread, that story, like trauma changes you. And but I think they kind of went too much in that route. But I don't know. I just know she's like on the right side of history with her mug. Did you see what her mug said?
No.
Oh. So it had teardrops on it, and it said "Tears of the Patriarchy."
Oh,
Colton
nice.
would despise it.
I was going to say, she still like has it. She like commands the screen presence.
Yes.
That's like, to me, like another real miss, because I would have liked to seen one of the younger characters be able to like kind of hold it together. And obviously Ava should have been that character. She spends the most screen time with her, but it was just, she like outacted everybody. And then I was like, that's when it gets kind of bad, because I'm like, no one is able to kind of hold a scene with her.
That's true. Even Freddie Prinze Jr. Ray.
Were you disappointed? Like, I was
Yes.
very disappointed in his performance in this.
It was so lackluster, so bland. Like should I bring up like should I blow the roast, I guess, the whole spoiler?
Yeah, we're in the spoiler section.
Okay. Yeah. So I know they needed like a legacy character to be the villain, to be the culprit, but I really hated like their explanation of the trauma, changing him into a villain, and that did not work for me. And it just gave me the ick about his character, on top of his character being just so boring, and none of it really made sense. And like you said, Jennifer Love Hewitt outacted him totally.
Yeah, well, and my real issue, I guess I'm a little I'm a little more forgiving with the trauma changing Ray thing. Like my real issue was the idea so Stevie also being the killer. So like you already said, yet again, this other thing taken from Scream, we're like, like we're it's not gonna be one person, it's gonna be multiple people now. But like, I thought the Stevie character was so mishandled this entire movie. We know absolutely nothing about her, essentially. They always give these vague things like, oh, wasn't she in rehab, or like anything like this, but like we don't see her struggle with any of this stuff. Like we have no real impact of it as a character for us, other than they say it. Her connection of why she's killing, they literally put on screen for like 3 seconds. Like, we see this book. First, we see this book that, they try to do the red herring of the preacher and all this kind of stuff. But then they like show the picture with her in it, where they're like, so you're like, oh, Stevie was like... But I still don't really understand did you understand the connection between her and the guy that died last summer? other than her hands around him, like they went to the same church.
They went to the same rehab facility, and they're like in love or something, and yeah, he died, and she was really
this
mad.
is my issue, is like, I feel like that should have been in my head. I should have been like, okay.
It was really stupid anyways, so.
Yeah, it is stupid, but when they showed that picture, I'm like, I'm not understanding, or I don't remember, or I don't care.
I also had the same reaction. I was like, why? And then I had to think about it. So yeah, you're right. It's not obvious.
And then that also weakens the Ray character, because then I'm like, so Ray promised her dad that he'd look after her, but I'm like, so why is he now a killer? Like, and he's like helping her on it, like,
but then he kills her,
but doesn't. So, because now we're just gonna get Stevie in the next one, I'm sure. Yeah, I was like, what a weak, like, it was just like a lot of weak links that I think they thought was a great twist, and I just thought very undercooked.
Yeah, it was kind of obvious, like, what was happening. Like, I had a feeling they were gonna do the Scream thing. Like, I just knew it. I think at one point when Teddy is like at home and he's drinking, and you see like the two fisherman suits, like one of them is decor and the other one's the actual fisherman. I feel like that has to be like a clue that there's two fishermen, right? I just knew it was going to happen. And then when the podcaster dies and she pulls back the hood and she's like, you know, it has to be someone she already knows. So it has to be like a legacy character, because she's like obsessed with like the history of this town and stuff. So, and I just knew like the priest like had to be a red herring. Like, I don't know, things like, it was just kind of very obvious, but also like half baked. Like, things just didn't make logical sense. Like, in the real world, I don't know if it would like work, I
never really know. I had mixed feelings on the podcaster thing.
Yeah.
Because I know people are going to say we're biased. And like, if I'm like, oh, I hate that podcaster thing, they're going to be like, oh, because they're making fun of you and all that kind of stuff. But I'm almost at the point now where, like, I understand, like, just the world listens to podcasts now, but I'm almost like, in horror, is the podcast thing, like, getting played out? I feel like every other new movie we see, like, it's something, there's some sort of thing about podcasts and all this or a podcast character. And, I get what they were doing with that character, not, because she's not there. It's not there to, set up this, just random lesbian scene on a plane in the washroom at the beginning for no real reason. I guess we're supposed to say that Ava's life is like in shambles or something going on there. But, obviously her main purpose was that she's the exposition dump. She basically gives her whole speech about, how this is connected to the first movie and like what is going on, why.
She's like the Randy.
Yeah, exactly.
From
like
Scream.
like a Randy, but just not as charming. And I guess she's supposed to be like kind of annoying. I don't know. I think about Randy and Scream and I'm like, Randy wasn't annoying. Like, he was a good character, where this is just like, this is an annoying character that I automatically know is cannon fodder, that is just exposition dumping for like 5 minutes onto me of this entire thing, which, if you're gonna copy Scream, I don't know, to me, what I'd be copying is the fact that they didn't feel they needed the exposition dump in the middle of it. Like, just assume people, I like things, this is going to be totally left field, but, let's think about James Gunn just put out Superman and is being praised for the fact that there's no explanation. It's just Superman exists. You don't know his backstory. You don't know that because he's saying you as an audience are not stupid. You can figure out Superman's backstory. You can look it up. You can do whatever. So I like when a horror movie that's part of a franchise that is now number 4 could just come in and say, guess what? We know, we're going to assume you've seen this. If you're young and new, maybe people are lazy nowadays, but I know I used to love, whether it's reading a comic book or watching a horror movie. Like, if I saw a horror movie and I saw, the third one before I've seen anything else, there was nothing more exciting to me than going back and watch, like, catching up on the history, so I'm in the know. I'm in the loop. I know what's going on. I just think it's so insulting to an audience to be like, let us just explain what's going on here so that you don't have to go back and watch the other movies. You can just start at this movie and not care.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Ring attended.
I think I'm just getting real tired of every single like horror movie we see has to make like they have to take some take on podcasters. It's normally true crime podcasters that are like the butt of the joke, but it's like everyone wants to make some social commentary about how stupid podcasts are.
I can't wait for comments on this of people being like, of course you guys would be offended.
I rolled my fucking eyes when she came on the screen, but yeah.
It just wasn't a good character guy. Like, to me, there's lots of times like podcasting's done right. I like the podcast use in the 2018 Halloween. Like I thought that was a good podcaster use and that kind of stuff. But yeah, just kind of lazy.
And speaking of like the lesbian airplane bathroom, I don't know what's going on there, like scene. I was then very confused. I know you're going to mention this, so let's just get into it. The last scene before the credits when Danica like licks her finger and puts it up to the air and says, "Divas are up." I thought there was going to be a lesbian romance between Danica and Ava, and I gasped. I was so excited, and then they said that, and I was like, oh. Well, what was the point of like this romance with the podcaster?
Yeah, I will say the one thing I did like about it that I thought was kind of refreshing, progress happening, I guess, even in, I know what you did last summer from 2025. I did like that there's no like someone's like, oh, well, she's like damaged, so she's trying girls now. And now I know, I said it's very implied in the movie that that's what's going on, that she's, being reckless, things like this. But I did enjoy, it's like she could just be bi in this movie, and it like no one addresses it or anything. And I like the fact that she can exist as a bi woman, and it doesn't have to have like some sort of major plot thing, or like it doesn't have to be explained like, oh well, she's doing this because of trauma. Like it's just,
I just want a lesbian ending is all.
I know you do. Maybe that we can get it the next one.
Maybe. The other thing about like all the relationships in this movie is that all of them were so boring. Like I didn't care that people were together, like Milo.
No chemistry at all.
But I think the most like shocking thing to me was like that Danica and Teddy, I guess, like broke up, and then like a year later you see Danica at her bridal shower, and then she's with a new dude. And I had a moment where I was like, that's not Teddy. Like, what's going on? Like, it's so confusing. And for a while, you don't know what happened.
And I didn't really get the new dude thing because, like, everything they show us, like, he seems fine. Like, he's like very nice to her. But then, like, she slips the line in that he's like an alcoholic. And she's like, oh, he's always drinking. And I was like, oh, like, it's always decent, but, like, is he a piece of shit behind the scenes? But, like, they never like say, they just kind of drop that. I guess maybe you can be an alcoholic and not a piece of shit. So, I guess. I mean,
what were you saying?
My only real issue with the ending was the memification, where when they said the line about like, they were like, whatever it was, like, oh, men would rather do this than go get therapy.
Yeah.
And I was like, did we really write that in as a lot? Like, I understand, those are always I always giggle at them when they're the Letterboxd review or like someone makes a meme about it. But I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. They just like said shit like this. And I'm like, people don't talk like this. People don't recite memes word for word to each other.
I mean, they do. I mean, I have heard women say stuff like that before, for real. Like that does
maybe
happen.
I'm in the wrong circles then. Yeah, maybe.
No, but I think it's really uncalled for. And I think it was
It just made me
Really
feel
dumb.
more like this was written by AI, even if it wasn't.
Yeah.
I just was like, oh, this is.
It was, and I feel like they thought they ate with that one. They're like,
No,
oh,
yeah,
the girlies are
100%.
gonna love this, you know.
So I don't know what else you have for notes there. Do we want to talk about this? Does have a post-credit scene in it?
Yeah, sure.
So like talk about that. So yeah, like I said, these guys aspiring because they're like, if we can make a boatload of money, we're on the screen train, baby, and we're not gonna fire our actors. So
Oh boy.
let's just make boatloads of money. So we get introduced to Brandy's character, who is in this. Well, what did you like? Yeah, what did you think?
She's in the second one, right?
Yes.
So I don't much remember the sequel, the second movie. So it took the cogs had to turn in my brain for a while to be like, why is Brandy here? But aside from that, I fucking love Brandy. I love Brandy in horror movies. I loved her in The Front Room that we reviewed not too long ago. So I would watch her in anything really because I think she's hilarious and I love her in horror. I don't know if this needs another sequel though. So I don't know. Kind of mixed feelings. What do you think?
Yeah, it was cool to see her. I mean, I always like Brandy popping up and stuff. I also like. I think I've only seen the sequel like once when I rented it or something. I remember it not being like amazing, but they like it's something for the old heads to get excited about. But this is what I'm talking about. Like when I was talking earlier about how I wish they would make people do the research. Where, like, that's for the people that do the research. That is like, you remember the second one? Here's this character. And to me, I'm like, let's go. Like, do things like that. I think it's an interesting way to position a sequel. Because obviously you can have Ava come back. But, like, they're obviously trying to center a sequel, like, with Jennifer Love Hewitt and Brandy. So I'm interested to see if maybe, like, they kind of take the forefront of a new sequel or something. I feel like Jennifer Love Hewitt probably would be on board for that.
Oh, yeah. Well, if it's them two, if it's...
She pretty much just does TV now. So, I mean, this is going to be, like, movie-wise, I feel, the biggest thing she's done, like, in a long time.
I mean, if Jennifer Love Hewitt and Brandy are like the focus like of the sequel that may or may not be coming, I would totally watch that because it'd be totally different from what this was.
Yeah.
I think that could be a lot more fun for people like us.
100%. All I really have to say is I'm just saying again, the music's pretty banger. I'm actually looking at the list now of stuff. Like Dragonette's on here, the 1975, Addison Rae.
Oh, you like Addison Rae?
I like pop. I like for pop stuff.
Didn't peg you for...
I don't know who Christian Lee Hudson is, but I just want to shout out whoever they are, their songs written by Maya Hawke. So...
Oh, cool.
That's kind of cool. Renee Rapp. Like, there's lots of... people that I fuck with in the soundtrack. I told Exilio when I got out of it, I was like, it's a bad movie, but I was like, you would love the soundtrack. Like, it's definitely in your, like, pop, synth pop wheelhouse, going on. Did you have any other notes, or are you good to... Just
one more thing to tack on to that. Like, there's that one really long scene where they just do the shot of, like, the... kind of like cliff, like the curve from like a drone, and they have like kind of like rock playing. I feel like that was very much like homage to the original, and I like that, but it was also a really long shot.
I do agree with that. And I know people are going to bring up, we didn't bring up a bunch of stuff, like we didn't talk about, how they switched the kill, how they killed the guy, and then, it's not them hitting someone with a car, but them being in the road, almost getting hit. But I just feel like so much of that wasn't really
Can we
pertinent.
talk about that?
Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Okay, yeah, we can talk about that.
I do have a note on that. You go first.
Yeah, I mean, with this, I was just kind of... I was like, sure, they want to do something different than the first one, but have that feel of the first one. I wasn't really offended by this. Obviously, they do the fake jump scare where, he yells they're about to hit something and then they're not.
Yeah.
I thought this was fine. To me, this was just kind of whatever burger. Like, you want to do something a little different, so you're not just doing the exact same thing from the original. But I'll be honest, I almost felt like just doing something totally different would have been fine too. Like, it didn't need to be with a car. It could have been like in some other situation.
A biker.
Well, just anything. I'm like, yeah, something on a boat, like something in like a pub, like anything. Like, it didn't have to be so similar to the first one. I wouldn't have been offended if it wasn't.
Yeah, I was pretty offended because I thought it was like the stupidest thing ever. First of all, like the first one, I feel like what they did was actually a really bad thing. You know, and reckless.
Well, they were drinking and driving.
Drinking and driving, and you hit someone. I feel like that's the guilt of that is way worse than, okay, I'm trying to remember exactly what happened. So the guy swerved around, one guy standing in the road, like being a dickhead. And then the guy goes off the road, well, sorta, and then he's hanging there and they try to help him, actually. So this is like losing more points for like how bad this actually is. They're trying to help him and then they get scared because he like puts his arm out the window and grabs onto Teddy? Is that who he grabs onto?
Yeah.
And then he like gets out of his shirt and then the guy goes down. But I feel like that's not that bad. Like the guy was going to die anyways. Like he kind of did it to himself. The bad thing, I guess, was, I don't know, because he said he called the cops.
The bad thing was Teddy was standing in the middle of the road and made him lose control. But I agree. It's not the same as drunk driving and like just smoking a guy in the road.
Yeah.
And it didn't make a lot of, like, to me, it just wasn't there because it didn't make a lot of sense to me because everyone's kind of a good person.
Yeah.
At the beginning of this, these guys are all very, like, trauma-informed. They seem very, like, with the times. They, like you said, they try to help the person. Where it's like the original, they were drunk. There's a section of the group that's just like, yep, nope, we're leaving. Mm-hmm. Where this one, it's like, well, everyone wanted to help originally until they thought about it a little longer. So, like, as you said, it's just like the maliciousness wasn't there to me like the first one.
Yeah, and I think that's like a big part of what makes that first one so iconic and so good. I mean, the title is I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like, you did something bad.
Yeah.
And now karma's coming back for you. But this, I don't know, it did really bother me because it's like you said, they could have done this so many different ways. I don't know if they were afraid to like do something like drinking and driving because maybe like the audience today would just be like, oh, you should never drink and you know what I mean? Whereas I think
that's a good point. Now that I think about it, I feel like, you know, in a teenager world, that's like less of a, like, I've seen lots of stats, news people have done and stuff that talks about like, you know, like way less teenagers drink in general than they used to. Like, it's kind of hip to be straight laced now. So, if you're new to the podcast, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Jill, what would you give 2025's I Know What You Did Last Summer?
Okay, so first, I'm just going to list my cons. So I thought the killer reveal and explanation wasn't great. I didn't think the acting was great, except for Danica and Jennifer Love Hewitt. And I thought, I don't know, having like a really bland main character to me is like an awful sin. There's a corny script. It takes a little bit of time to get into the movie. Do we really need another sequel bait? And I don't like the way that they got into trouble. I thought that was really dumb. But for the pros, I thought it was kind of interesting to see an updated Southport because, I mean, not really like the mansions and stuff, but just seeing like the gentrification of like what's happening in the town, I feel like is relatable. A lot of people can relate to that, you know, especially like people who live in these coastal towns, like that is happening. And like fishing isn't happening as much. And it's more like tourism. I think it's an updated installment for the franchise. I thought the kills were cool. I like the effects. I like some of the nods and callbacks to the original. They brought back some old cast, which was cool. It was fun. It was a great soundtrack. And I love that Danica didn't actually die. I would have been like actually so upset. So I'm gonna give it an okay, which is the same rating that I gave the original. I'm not mad that it exists, but it's not great either. It has its flaws, but it also has some perks, just like the first. And I think it's a perfectly mediocre summer slasher, and sometimes that's what you're in the mood for. So yep, it's an okay for me. What about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to be a little more blunt. I'm going to give it an A.
I knew it.
I didn't really enjoy this. I gave the original one an okay. And when we talked about that original one, I wasn't even a big fan of that one after rewatching it. And I still like it infinitely better than this one. I really don't see... There's so many of these that I come in with an A and then I end up bumping it up. Like even just off the conversations we have where I'm like, oh, at least this movie gave me some good conversations. This one just didn't. It just made me mad thinking about the longer I thought about it. So yeah, I'm just gonna come in with a simple nay. I don't see the point of this. I don't see the point of copying the Scream format. And if you're gonna copy the Scream format, you gotta at least be as good as a Scream requel, and it just wasn't. And it just really felt like a very bad cash grab. So unfortunately, I have to give it an A. Yeah, and I love Jennifer Love Hewitt, so it really hurts my heart. So if you're not doing so, you can follow us on any social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, TikTok, Tumblr, Threads, I don't know, pretty much Bluesky, pretty much anything as long as it's not X. We're on it at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to help support the show financially, like our horror hounds, Holly, Nicholas, Mark, Stephen, Dan, Brian, Trevor, and James, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams, hosted by Gill, which we haven't done in a little while. And I noticed we haven't put an episode out that I think we recorded like last year towards the end of the year.
Oh my god.
So we're gonna put that out for you because it's like it was a little banger, a little bite of a little banger.
Oh.
And you can also get the main show 48 hours early. Be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. This is where I have to do the awkward transition because I'm talking, where I'm going to talk about Spotify, but no one's throwing it over to me.
I was ready to do it.
Oh, you were ready? I took over. I said, I'm going to give Jill a little break. It's late.
That's okay.
So, yeah, who knows? Maybe a little Addison Rae on the playlist if I decide to just, jam out. But you can find out by going on Spotify, going to the It Slays Podcast Horrific playlist. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media that I just mentioned, go into the bio, click the Linktree link, it'll take you directly there. We upload scores or licensed music from iconic horror movies we review, or just horror movies we love. So give it a follow. We update it regularly and get your spooky music on, because why the hell not? And next up on Now Slaying, I feel like Colton will be back. I think the next thing we're eyeing, if it comes to our areas, we're looking at doing together the new Allison Brie and Dave Franco horror film. And then, like everyone else, we're doing the countdown to August 8th for Weapons. So, there'll definitely be stuff in the pipe. And as we always say, we're always keeping an eye on, Shudder or something, if there's anything we're interested in doing that comes directly there. I don't know, Jill. I might have to drag you on. Colton didn't want to do the new Bambi horror movie.
Oh boy.
I don't know why. I said you can do Winnie the Pooh, but you can't do Bambi? You got no love for Bambi?
Right.
I doubt I'm gonna get it on Now Slaying. So but yeah, we'll be back with something. So as always, thank you for all the support. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
Bye, it's Jill.
And if you keep listening, we'll keep slaying.